talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is
the only way to start your day, and TALA is the only companion that you need to have on your phone for your financial needs, all right? So you just think about it. If you download TALA today from Google Play, you will have a companion. And from 0 shillings to 50,000 shillings, that's the highest limit they're currently offering. Now you'll be able to take out a loan when you need it. There are people who actually, City, as we were told by TALA, and from their own experience, from what they've seen, over the last 10 years, there are people who have worked out their financial plan, and on the financial plan is TALA. So at this particular point, I know I'm running a business. I know I'm living my life. At this particular point, I will need some money, and this is when I'll go to TALA. I will borrow this amount of money. It'll take me up to this point. I'll commit myself to pay within this time, and then I'll move. So this is how you balance, right? It's like people say, I know I will go on and take a salary advance on this particular date to push me up to this point, and then this is what will happen, right? So there are people who basically have learned, I've done my financial planning, and TALA is playing an integral part of it. And because of your credit history, because you're borrowing and you're repaying on time, because you are not defaulting, your limit keeps rising. Your positive score works for you, you know? And that's the thing about TALA.
Yes. And it is exactly as they say. You see, the moment you have a financial entity that is regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya, and is also registered with the Data Commission, there are rules by which they will adhere. And that is a guarantee for your own safety and for your own financial welfare.
Yes.
And TALA has precisely that.
Yes.
Yes.
One of the things that they keep insisting they will not do is they are not going to anika you because you borrowed money from them. They'll not use you as a case study. Even for those who are successful, they'll not, without your own permission, come and say, kuwa kama City. City alianza kuborrow 5,000. Sahi tunapatia 50. Na City every month lazima chukue 50. Sijui anafanya nini, lakini City, no.
Yes, and what we colloquially refer to as character development.
Utapewa. Ile za, faith. Ati City ni friend yako. How do you deal with that guy? What? Huyo jamaa ukimwona tu hivyo. Hapa kwetu he comes every week for money.
Daily.
No, they will not do those kind of things. It is your relationship with them, and your data is protected. Our guest for the next hour is the 51st President of the Law Society of Kenya. Good morning, Faith Odhiambo.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, and
it's
you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yes, like City said when you walked in, and like the last time you were here, when you had not slept for I don't know how many days, this time you look a bit relaxed.
Rested.
Rested.
But when you look at her carefully, it's like she's carrying the world on her shoulders.
I think what she's done is that now she has actually now sat on the seat properly.
Vizuri.
And she has managed, she knows.
She had adjusted it nicely.
At 3 a.m. I'm going to get a call. At 6 a.m. I'm going to have to get up. At 4:15 a.m. I'll have to be talking to some certain police officer, or I'll be calling. Now you know.
Yes. And in between, there will be all these unplanned emergencies, which will come to my desk and I have to deal with them.
And beyond that, I still have to pay my bills. So I have to also run my life as a lawyer and make my money. Hey, Buana, that's a lot. Did you know that this was it when you were asking for people to vote for you in as president? I know you had been a vice president, but...
It was busy, but we've never had this before.
I have asked a previous vice president before. Is this what you thought of when you wanted to be president? So let me ask this former vice president. Is this what you thought of when you wanted to be president?
No, this is not what I thought of. Of course. No one thinks that people will be picked up every day, and you're always having an emergency every single day.
Okay, there is no chairman in the history of the LSK who have had to deal with the issues you're dealing with now, has there?
I think maybe they had different issues. We have had chairmen during the Moi era as well, when people are fighting for multi-parties.
When Kina Moita were dealing with those things, they're also dealing with...
so they've had also their equal share of weight on their shoulders.
But that one was different. It's a meat and potato thing. It's a dictatorship, you do what you're told. If you don't do what you're told, you know where you're going to go. And there was no complexity in the law. The moment you have a constitution like the one we have, it gets very, very interesting.
Starts bringing other stories.
Oh, yes, it does. Oh, yes, it does. And from many, many, many quarters. So you're not just dealing, because that one was government is the problem.
Yes.
Okay? It's no longer just government is the problem. We didn't have civil society who also think they're the government. No. We didn't have...
Or the law society.
Or the law society.
Okay. Faith, karibu sana. City will give you the day's proverb. This week we are in the state of Libya.
Yeah, we're in the state of Libya. Lydia, not Lydia, it's Libya. Yes.
Our producer Lydia, the first time she heard this, she wondered, what's wrong in what state am I in?
Yes.
State of Lydia. No.
Libya. Okay. Walk with sandals until you get good shoes.
Walk with sandals until you get good shoes.
That's interesting.
Madam President, what's your interpretation of this?
Well, I would say that cut your coat according to thy cloth. So keep going. That use the tools that you have to start that journey until one day you make it. Don't wait that until you have good shoes to start walking. So just use whatever tools, if it's sandals, slippers, just work with what you have to try and achieve your goals until you make it.
It's a simple one. It's a simple proverb, right? Simple, direct proverb. This proverb was not written by a lawyer. If it was written by a lawyer, it would be 4 sentences.
Really?
Walk if you must.
Yes. Wear sandals even if they're not available.
And when available.
Yes.
Hey.
Yeah.
Listen, there's a story on page 10 of the Standard today.
Yeah.
The family of lawyer John Eric Wasonga, alias Lavani Milam, together with several activists, are calling for his return after he was abducted by unknown people in Ruaka, Kiambu County. According to his family, Wasonga, who is a vocal government critic, was picked up on Tuesday, October 29th at around 3:30 p.m. and his mobile phone was switched off. Addressing the media yesterday, the family and friends said that they were notified of his abduction by his expectant wife, and they have since searched in all police stations in Ruaka. He is nowhere to be found. They say, we don't know his whereabouts. We do not know where he is, whether he is alive or not. We just want him to be produced. They say they caught up with him, but he was able to record the number plate of the vehicle trailing him and a voice note of his encounter with them. This is what Vocal Africa CEO Hussein Khalid said. Wasonga was picked up outside a supermarket in Ruaka. We are telling the government that cases of abductions and extrajudicial killings must cease. Madam President, what's going on?
The same question, but you should be asking the main president what's going on in his country. So we've gotten several distress calls like this in terms of abductions. What we normally ask is that the family come to the Law Society so that we prepare, if we have to, a habeas corpus application to go before the court, demanding that if it's they're in state custody, then they must be produced in court. That's the sort of style we have adopted, because once you've applied as much pressure and made as much noise, we of course have to go back to the courts, because we are guided by a constitution, we are guided by laws in this country. And so we find it quite alarming what's happening. Boniface being picked up, Aoko missing. We still have the MCA from Wajir missing, amongst others that people keep calling upon us. Yesterday we got distress call of somebody who had been arrested in Embakasi because of, just exercising his right to picket. And even when we sent a lawyer there, they refused to release him on bond. And there's no offense that is not bailable now in this country. And so our challenge is that we also ask the courts to also be a bit tough, that if these state agencies do not obey court orders, by the time they come to court, let them free all these people and also deal with the necessary officers, because that's when we can actually see positive change. I always say that I don't think the Kitengela 3 would have been found if it wasn't for the hard stance that the High Court took with regards to that particular matter. And so if we don't see the courts also wearing their coat of or armor of bravery, then we'll foresee more Kenyans disappearing in this day and age, unfortunately.
So you make several applications for habeas corpus. Once you're told that somebody has gone missing,
Yeah.
you're not able to trace them, you go to court and say, compel the state agencies to produce this person.
Yeah.
How many are pending? How many applications have you made where actually the still person hasn't been produced?
Well, we have quite a number. I would say like 4 or 5 that are still pending before court. But you see, the reality is the responsibility is on the police to know and to tell Kenyans where this person is. You can't say with all the intelligence you have, you cannot find Kenyans. When they want you, they use your phone to find you in record time. But when you've been abducted, they purportedly don't know your whereabouts. So we can't have our cake and eat it at the same time. They're either telling us that this person has been picked up, either it's an abduction by other known sources, but they use the resources they have in this country to trace and track, arrest whichever people or find where the victim is. Because you cannot say that Kenya, you're spending this amount of money in the budget that is taxpayers' money, yet you cannot explain where the citizens of this country are. You cannot ensure that there's peace and security in this country, because it should also be a worrying trend from the head of state to all heads of security agencies, because it creates a question is, if it's not government picking them up, then who is this? And you ought to be worried, because it means that then there are Al-Shabaab or terrorists within the country picking up people, or the level of crime rate has risen so high that you cannot control your security in your own country. So I think this is not just a problem that they should think that let's sweep it or let's keep quiet about it. It should be a problem that they would be asked, even our foreign agencies that are in this country. I saw in the newspaper, it was reported that the head of MI6 was saying that they would withdraw any funding if Kenya doesn't, deal with this question of abduction. But I say this with a bit of satire, because in exchange they're bringing more intelligence to the country in terms of giving them equipment. So I hope this equipment will be used to find these missing Kenyans and tell us as a country, as a nation, that we can trust that the head of state is ensuring that his people are well protected.
There's something you've said. So around 4 or 5 applications that are pending, where you've said this person is missing, produce them.
Yeah.
But we hear that there are over 60 or so. I mean, how many cases of people who have disappeared, who families are saying they can't trace them? How many are we dealing with?
The last report by Kenya National Commission of Human Rights was at around 60. But you know how the law society works. We have to have a paper trail. The family members have to come, report, then we proceed with the matter, because also we don't want to have chances of, unverified information or fictitious, and you'll be told that who told you to go to court. So we prefer to work with the families so that at all times, at the end of the day, the law society will be acting for you, but the family is the client. so that even the case of the Kitengela 3, we were working in conjunction with the family members that come to the Law Society to seek support. So with that regard, at least you're sure that you're working with credible information.
So far,
Yeah.
so 4 or thereabout families have actually come to you.
Yeah.
And they said, we are looking for our loved one, we can't trace them.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility of many more that have disappeared, but they haven't come to the Law Society of Kenya?
Well, there is a
And
possibility.
what reason would there be if they know that they can get support from the LSK? Why would they not come?
I wouldn't be able to answer that question, but there are various agencies. You've seen Vocal Africa is also in that space. There's Katiba, there's Kituo, there's the ICJ, there's the Kenya National Commission of Human Rights and Kenya Human Rights Commission, Kenyan Human Rights Commission. So there are several organizations working on this space. So probably they've reached to the different civil society organizations. But we work with that kind of system because we have a toll-free line. So even if you call and report and you say this is your case and you want to share details, we are open to that and working, because the Law Society is not just in Nairobi. We are all around the country. So in terms of the question of reach, we're available through the different branches and chapters that people are able to reach and get assistance. And part and parcel of even this week, we are running the Legal Awareness Week, is to also create sensitization to members of the public where the Law Society is, how can you get them, and sharing free legal advice to those who are having challenges. We've had even some that were injured. A few that we had visited in Kenyatta National Hospital have been coming as well to just report their cases. But those who were not able to reach out to, that's part of the reason why we're doing this event, Legal Awareness Week, so that those who are still struggling and have concerns can easily reach the Law Society of Kenya.
You know, one of the things that I've always found interesting, I was looking at this particular article in The Nation. What UK and UAS want from Ruto. I never cease to be amazed at the forked tongue approach to these matters when we have supposed friendly nations and their representatives talking to us about what we should do. See, one of the things that these clever nations do is, for instance, the USA for the longest time had Guantanamo Bay. So it wasn't within their own territory. Mm-hmm. But people would be abducted and then end up there. The British have Diego Garcia. Most people don't even know there is a Diego Garcia. But meaning they found a legal way of doing exactly what this government is doing. But the positive side of it is that they know. And this is something they understand very, very, very well. Anyway, their interests aside, earlier on in the morning we were saying, okay, this is what the newspapers tell us, but what else were they really telling us? I want to speculate. I want to speculate because I want to get onto this issue. You see, one of the things that the US did when there was a huge drug menace in their country, they realized a lot of these things had to do with money. So they started ensuring that there were laws that could help them trace and track money. The country that resisted this for the longest time was Switzerland. But Switzerland had to cave in because if you want to do big business on this planet, you really need to have a presence in the US, simply because of the way the economy is run. So they also changed their laws, did their referendum, and you now were able to trace money, partly because it was the drug money that ended up funding terrorists, ended up doing A, B, C, D. Now, we have a problem with monies that are intended for development, doing all sorts of things other than the development for which is intended. Now, those systems would be able to trace and understand exactly where the money is. Usually the arm twisting comes in when they present you with this thing and say, we know exactly what you've been doing with this money and this way it's been going. So now, you either behave yourself or... Now, back to the issue of disappearances. Why is it that we have to get to a stage where the government thinks it can silence its critics by enforcing something as archaic and draconian as what we saw in the Moi era? Because this is exactly what we are seeing.
Yeah.
Is it that so that people would be afraid to speak and say this is wrong? What do you think it's supposed to happen? Because people keep being abducted, and from what I see, people just keep talking. It's not as though they're talking less.
Well, I would say that even if people keep talking, they get mental fatigue. You know, I've visited a number of prison police cells, and I dare say there are certain police cells, if you're taken there, you will never want to be picked up again. So it will reduce, let's say, the vigor
So it works.
in which you engage in. Yes, so it works. And you know, a lot of families, because of the disappearances, those who would be witnesses, some are afraid, because as much as the young people may be open to, you know, sleeping in the cells and, you know, going to the streets on several occasions, they have parents, they have family members who are concerned about them, who are worried about them. And so, you know, that pressure also from your family, just, you know, you need to think about others. How will it affect us? How, if you have children, how will it affect your children, your spouse? And so that pressure sort of works. And so it's a concerted effort that we need to talk as one voice and just push back. That we can't go back to a scenario whereby voices are silenced through abductions. You know, I dare say in the region, Kenya stands out. Because look at what's happening in our neighborhood, in the countries around us. We continue to be the beacon in terms of we say whatever we want, the way we want, and how we want it. Kenyans are not afraid to go and camp at the Twitter and Facebook accounts, or, you know, whatever accounts of the head of state or any cabinet secretary, and tell them off, and even call them and tell them off. But these are scenarios that you can't do in our neighboring countries. And so this we need to jealously guard, because this constitution enabled Kenyans to be highly litigious, but at the same time enabled Kenyans to be able to engage proactively in terms of what do they want to see in their country, calling out their leaders for corruption and certain vices that they see in the society. And so for me is... I feel that if we don't fight for what we believe in, we might find ourselves reneging and going back. And you see, the playbook for Moi will come back again, because then we'll have the judiciary sinking and being afraid to voice itself out. Because once the citizens are not making noise, the citizens are not going to the courts, the citizens are afraid, the courts are on their own. And so we will go back to the Moi playbook, that despite having such a robust constitution, and hence, you know, we need to continue pushing back. And the efforts to find these missing Kenyans must continue. People must continue pushing to ensure that every single life that has been lost is held accountable. That's why we keep asking the relevant institutions must ensure they hold these individuals accountable. Because if we don't do that and let it slide the way Kenyans sometimes easily forget, then, you know, it precipitates for the future. Others will say, why should we go to the streets? Because the younger generation, I would say the Gen Zs, don't have the baggage that, you know, the X generation and which spread to the millennials because of the history of the challenges that have been there. They say they're only afraid of two things: marriage and pregnancy. So the rest is, you know, you can't scare them with it's fair game. You can't scare them with police cells and abductions. But if they get to a place where, you know, their voices are also silenced, it means it spreads still the next generation. So it's up to us to protect this generation to be able to continue being active and proactive in the politics and democracy of their nation.
Indeed. Let's take a break. The president of the Law Society of Kenya is our guest this morning, Faith Odhiambo. And the people who are saying, yes, you really have stood out and you're serving not just your profession, but you're serving the country very well. So kudos to you from our listeners. Studying in Ireland is something that many people would like to do, but they just don't know. Faith, do you know where the Irish embassy is in Nairobi?
I don't know.
It's in Parklands, actually. Highridge. Yes.
It's in Highridge.
Yes. And it's on a place called Manyani Road.
The embassy. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Now, also in Parklands, there's a mall called the Gallant Mall. Okay. Now, if you'd like to study in Ireland, let's say in the next intake, you're sitting your KCSE now soon, and you'll want to go and study in Ireland maybe next year, or you've just done your A and O level exams and you'd like to go and study there. How you can get to information about that is you go to the official Study in Ireland Fair, which will be taking place on the 9th of November at the Gallant Mall in Parklands, Nairobi, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. The only way for you to be able to access all this information on all these universities is by registering cradle.com, CRAYDEL.com. That's cradle.com. Go in there, register. You'll find the participating universities: Griffith College, University of Galway, University of Limerick, Technological University of the Shannon, Dublin State University, Independent College, University College Cork. All of these universities have sent representatives to come to Nairobi on the 9th of November, where they'll interact with you, answer all your questions, tell you about the courses they offer, the admission requirements, even scholarship available. So register today.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start
I
your
know
day.
mko na talents, lakini mko na vibe. It's time to